Lester, what up, bro? Good morning, man. Top of the hour to you. Sorry to change something real quick. Into it here. We got a lot to cover today. We got a lot of news to go over. I think it's going to be easier. Got up a little early to get my drink, my caffeine, to share with you guys. But I think it's going to be a little more easy and more beneficiary to everybody that joins this, so we can visually see when I'm talking about it, besides me just going through like in the car. I enjoy doing it in the car, like on the drive, doing the deal, but I think this just makes more sense. That way we can kind of visually see it. We can kind of go through, talk. Messing with my last for last hour. See, that's an issue unless there's reasoning behind it, like a lot of your players have. There's been like some crazy news that's just changed a lot, right? What's up, Jay? Welcome. Good morning. How you doing? So that's changing the lineups, and I think we talked about it the other night, right? So you start changing your lineup. Typically, when you start changing one thing, you're messing up a lot of the rest of the correlation with the lineup. If there is correlation. If there isn't correlation, well, then maybe it doesn't really matter as much. But we'll get into it. We'll talk about it. I know people aren't getting notifications, so I shared this out. Hopefully, they'll follow through here in the next minute or two. But we're going to dive right in. I'm going to kind of do it normally like I do, like game by game. We can either put up DraftKings or FanDuel. It doesn't really matter either way. Again, I'm going to start by kind of players that I'm going to be very, very heavy on this week on FanDuel and DraftKings. You know, some things will fluctuate or vary between them. But let me just pull up let me just go into a new contest here real quick. Enter new lineup. So at quarterback, obviously Patrick Mahomes. Again, guys, every single week. What's up, Mark? Good morning, buddy. Every single week, Patty Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce are all going to be low owned, like 10%, in that 10% range. The reason for this is because in GPPs, right, typically in football, you stack. It's kind of like baseball in a sense where you typically stack. Stack meaning if you play a quarterback, you typically play a receiver or receiver and tight end, and then you typically run it back on the other side of the game, right? Because you're thinking it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Because why would Patrick Mahomes have a super high-ceiling game if he's not in a shootout or if he's not in a close game? It probably doesn't make much sense, right? They're going to start running the ball at some point throughout the game. They're not going to keep passing to run up the score. But when you take Patrick Mahomes at 8,700, and if you look, besides running back, tight end and receiver, right? Tyreek Hill is one of the tops, 8,200. Travis Kelce is always going to be the highest priced tight end. So it's very hard to stack Kansas City. It's very hard to make the rest of your lineup make sense. You have to pay down a lot to really get there. So I don't mind Patty Mahomes. Actually, don't mind him for cash this week. I think he's a very safe cash play, and you just don't necessarily have to stack him, right? So you can pretty much run him blind. And if you're building a cash lineup, you don't need that run back correlation because you're just looking for overall raw points. You're not really looking for anything specific like a crazy like back and forth game. On a cash lineup, you need more a high floor game versus a high ceiling game, if that makes sense. We kind of talked about this the other week where cash and GPPs are two completely different things, right? In GPPs, we're looking for the highest ceiling game that players can get in each position because we need to get the highest score possible. In cash, you don't need to have the highest score of the week. Like as far as like overall from everybody else, if you're playing like head-to-heads, you just need to beat the guy you're playing in head-to-head, which he's building a cash lineup or should be building a cash lineup as well, which is more safe floor, not high ceiling. So that's where kind of that difference lays. So Patty Mahomes, Josh Allen. Obviously, Josh Allen is going to be a play that you can go off of any single week. Last week, monster, right? FanDuel, it was 37.77 points. Just a monster. Had a huge week. He's going up against Houston. I don't think Houston keeps up here. I think a lot of people feel that same way. I don't know that Josh Allen is really the guy I'm looking for in tournaments. Now, I could be wrong. Now, Kyler Murray is a very interesting play. And I'm not going to have a ton of Kyler Murray. But here's what I don't understand. Okay? I love the Rams this year. I love Matthew Stafford this year. I've made that very clear in every live stream I've talked about football. I said it in fantasy season-long drafts. The dude is going to have a monster year. This game is going to be a shootout, right? Everybody is playing Stafford, including myself, with Woods or Kupp and Higbee, right? And then running it back with Hopkins or Christian Kirk, or someone or Edmonds, right? But nobody is going to be playing Kyler Murray. So this is one of those quarterback stances or quarterback plays in a very good game script, in a very good game position, that you could really look to get huge leverage in tournaments. And I am going to take a stab at it. I am going to have a lineup or two with Kyler Murray. I'm not going to be heavy. His ownership for me is not going to be heavy, but I am going to go there. Don't love Hopkins this week. He's got Ramsey. Yeah, but that's not. But again, I don't love Hopkins either. But I do like Christian Kirk and I do like Rondale Moore, the other guy that I said who was one of my sleepers going into the season, who broke out 2 weeks ago, who had that 72-yard touchdown. So yes, Ramsey not so much, Hopkins not so much. If you see my lineups where I'm running and I'm playing Stafford and I'm stacking them with Kupp or Woods, and I'm more heavy on Woods this week than I am Kupp with Higbee, most of my lineups are either going to have Christian Kirk or Rondale Moore in them. So yeah, I agree, Fester. Not huge on Hopkins. His price tag is too high. The matchup he's got is too tough. It's too difficult. Not a fan of that either. But Murray still has Hopkins to make that big playability, and he has Christian Kirk, who's been a monster so far through 3 weeks. And he's got Rondale Moore, who has that breakout ability at any time to take one to the house, 80 yards, 90 yards, whatever it might be. So Kyler Murray is an interesting stance if you really want to find some leverage at quarterback this week. And quarterback is always not there's never a super high ownership level in quarterback, in tournaments anyway, because there's so many options, right? There's so many different quarterbacks, and everybody has their own stance on where they think what game's going to be what and how it's going to play out and whatnot. So, but Murray is going to be probably sub 5% ownership if I were to guess. I'm guessing here, but Lamar Jackson against Denver, I'm staying away. No, thank you. I don't want any piece of that. I don't really want any piece of that game besides maybe Sutton. Maybe Sutton. You could look at Fant. We'll get to those positions as we go. Jalen Hurts is a popular play, as well as Dak Prescott, right? And Prescott's right here, so we'll kind of talk about them both at the same time. Jalen Hurts obviously has that playability and the rush upside, which can be huge, right? Because he's going to use his legs, as Dak can use his legs, but he doesn't use his legs as much. And we're not as heavy on Hurts' arm, even though he does pass. He's not known he's known to get out and scramble, right? We're gonna get those rush yards, maybe a rush touchdown or two from Jalen Hurts, and this should be another game that should be a shootout. If I'm playing Hurts, I'm probably matching him up with. I'm probably gonna stack him with like a Devontae Smith, and either leaving it at that, or I'm going to go to a Dallas Goedert as well. And then, again, you could run it back with either a CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Dalton Schultz, if you will. And as I say his name, Zeke Elliott, right? So I just listed off the players I'd run it back with. That would be the same thing if you were playing Dak Prescott at quarterback, which Dak is a very cash reliable quarterback. Hurts, you could say, probably is too. A little bit more risky in cash, but Dak Prescott would be a solid cash play as well this week. And I just kind of touched on Stafford. I have a lot of Stafford besides the guy I'll get to when we get to him. Again, this guy, I've talked about him. I've hyped him up all week or all season. I mean, I think he could possibly break some records this year. He has the offensive weapons to do it and the offensive line to protect him. He has the defense to also do what they need to do to control these games, whereas he didn't have that in Detroit. Possible MVP candidate. It's early, but we'll see. We'll see. I really, really, really love him. Russell Wilson, it could be another interesting play here. The problem we're running into with Seattle is that they have to let him, everybody talks about this, but they have to let him cook, right? They have to let him just go and pass, right? Their game script, as you watch it, they are airing the ball a lot, but they're not airing it out enough. And they're not airing it out enough. They want to try running that ball. They want to have that run game in there, which is fine, but it can have an effect on Russell Wilson and his play and his numbers and overall fantasy production. He's putting up solid numbers, but it could be better. And there's other guys in this like this week 4 at quarterback that are going to probably outscore him. And there's probably going to be a couple that do. I don't mind like taking a shot at in one contest or two, but I'm not going to be heavy on Russell Wilson this week. I'm not going to have multiple lineups with Russell Wilson at quarterback. I'm just not going to do it. Now, if you're going to play him again, we'll go back and we'll touch on it. You got, I don't know, the Lockett news, has that dropped yet? Is he going to play? Is he not playing? We got DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf's, I don't think, on the injury report anymore, but he is battling or dealing with a foot issue, right? And the one guy I do really like that you can almost punt at, he's 4,400 on FanDuel. He's like 22 or 2,400 on DraftKings, is Disley at tight end, right? Because Gerald Everett is out. So Disley is an interesting play, cheap play, value play, if you will. If you're looking for some salary relief, that's somewhere where you can go with Wilson or without Wilson and just putting him in at tight end and Disley. Aaron Rodgers against Pittsburgh at home is somewhat interesting. Not being talked about a lot, right? He could have a decent monster game. You know, Devontae Adams, Tanyan, MVS, right? Alan Lazard, to name a few that you could stack with. I'm not going there. I'm not going to play there. That's not really where I'm looking at. Ryan Tannehill, we all know that this week with Julio, with A.J. Brown out, he's got like the likes of Chester Rogers and that Westbrook, King P, or whatever the heck his name is. They're both really cheap plays, value punt plays, if you will. You can kind of go there or look there if you'd like. But I am off Ryan Tannehill. If you're playing any piece of this game on the Tennessee side, you're obviously paying way up for the king himself, Derrick Henry, which should not only be heavily involved in the run game, but should be probably heavily involved in the pass game as he has been this year for the first season in his career. Crazy. Kirk Cousins. This is a highlight, right? This is a guy that I'm going to be heavy on. This guy made my thumbnail. This is, again, I've said this before. I said this in my Core 4 video I dropped, my quick video, Core 4 plays. This is a guy that I am going to be probably 70% owned on between FanDuel and DraftKings. The game script, the way this is looking, I think it's 51.5 point total. 51.5. Browns are favored by 1. This should be a continued shootout back and forth. Here's the other thing that I'm finding out is that Justin Jefferson, people are looking at Kupp, right, with that Stafford, with going with Stafford. People are possibly looking at Tyreek Hill, even though I don't think he'll be that highly owned because of the price and because of what he's been doing. People go back and look at game script. They look at game logs, A lot of times they make that be their deciding factor of where they're going to go, how they're going to play. Devontae Adams is going to be a guy who's going to be super heavy, a lot of ownership, cash viable as well. Steph Diggs, another guy. But Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, again, Justin Jefferson, I would assume, is probably going to come under 5% owned this week. Now, you could go with him or you could go with Thielen. I'm personally going to go Jefferson in the majority of my lineups. There are a few that I've built that do have both Jefferson and Thielen, right? These guys have combined since 2020, when Jefferson came on board as a rookie last year. These two have combined, Thielen and Jefferson, for 24 touchdowns, 24 or 27 touchdowns. That's the most from any receiver duel since the start of 2020. Dalvin Cook is expected to play. Antonio Gibson's expected to play. George Kittle will play. So we're getting some news here. That's awesome. It's good to hear. Now, again, if Kirk Cousins is going to have a huge game, if we're talking GPP, if we're building a GPP lineup, and again, Cousins is not going to be very high owned. He's going to be very low owned this week. We have to run it back, right? You can run it back with a Nick Chubb, Donovan Peoples, but the guy I'm going to be looking at is going to be a Odell Beckham Jr. I think this is just too good of a spot for this man. So, again, and that's leaving us on FanDuel. That's leaving us with like 63.5 for salary, and we haven't even plugged the defense in, which is going to up that or increase that quite a bit. All right, let's keep going down receivers here. So we got DeAndre Hopkins. We kind of talked about that. Fester kind of mentioned that in the chat as well. Gonna have a Jimmy G stack. Yeah, I like Ayuk and I like Debo, but I really like Sermon this week. I'm gonna get trapped in again, and I'm gonna touch on that when we get there. I think we kind of we skipped a running back, but we'll go back to running back here after because I wanted to correlate it with Cousins. So again, we got Amari Cooper. Again, that can go back with your Dak Prescott stacks. You can go there, go Lamb. Lamb or Cooper would be great and viable for cash builds as well. Adam Thielen, we just kind of touched on. CD Lamb, getting plenty of targets, going to be there. DJ Moore is interesting. A lot of people are talking Hubbard. A lot of people on Hubbard this week. I think Hubbard's more of a cash play than a tournament play. I think the chances or the possibilities, if you will, if Carolina for some reason gets down in this game or they're trailing, right, they're probably not going to dump off as many passes to Hubbard as they would if CMC was in the game. So, you know, if you're looking at like a Hubbard versus like possibly a David Montgomery, and we'll go there, we'll get there when we get to running back, I would think about that. Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan has been absolutely horrid. He's been terrible, right? I had the red zone. I was watching the red zone last weekend, and they kept going back to Atlanta, and Atlanta was like at the goal line or 5-yard line or 10-yard line. I don't remember. They're inside the red zone. And he kept trying to throw a touch. He kept trying to throw it to Pitts. Pitts kept getting targets in the end zone, but Pitts was jumping as high as he could, and the ball was like not even touching his hands, or it was just hitting his fingertips. Like, I don't know what is up with Matt Ryan. I don't know. The accuracy is just not there this year. So I'm kind of a guy that wants to stay away from Atlanta. Now, this might be the week that they go out, and that's a possibility. But I don't want anything to do with Mr. Calvin Ridley. Pitts, I would take a look at, but Ridley, I'm just not on. Not for that price right now. There's too many other guys, like a guy on the other side of the ball, Terry McLaurin. This is a great game script for the terrible Atlanta defense. Terry could have like 10, 11 receptions today. He could possibly get in the end zone twice. If he doesn't, it's probably going to be someone like Gibson, right? Gibson sounds like Gibson's playing. Antonio Gibson. So Terry McLaurin is a guy that I do like as well. Now Claypool is out. Deontay Johnson. That's another guy that's been getting a lot of targets. I think, what has he been averaging? 10 targets, 12 targets. I mean, the first week he only caught 5. Then he caught 9 last week. So Deontay Johnson's interesting with Claypool out. We can look to see who else is going to be at receiver for them. Fester talked about Jimmy G. So Deebo Samuel would be a guy. Brandon Ayuk would be another guy to look at. Brandon Cooks, no thank you. Again, I don't really want anybody from Houston this week. Not against Buffalo, in Buffalo. You got David Mills, right? Odell Beckham is just way too cheap. Way too cheap. I think he's $5,800 on DraftKings. He's $6,600 on FanDuel. Just way too cheap this week in what looks to be an awesome game. Going to be a shootout. I'm excited. I'm excited to be a Minnesota fan and watch it. It's in Minnesota. Me and my son were supposed to be at this game, but he had homecoming and whatnot this weekend, so couldn't make it. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. Again, I wasn't a fan of Lamar Jackson. Wasn't a fan of this game at all. He can always pop a deep one. He has a problem catching the ball. We should be talking more about Hollywood Brown than we should be Jamar Chase on not catching footballs. He dropped, 3 balls that I think 2 out of the 3 probably would have been easily a touchdown last weekend. Not good. No bueno. Allen Robinson is an interesting play. We didn't really touch on Justin Fields or Heineke. Heineke is interesting as a GPP play. I don't trust it. Justin Fields, I don't trust either. But if Fields is going to have a big game, Allen Robinson is going to have a big game. So if Fields gets it together going up against Detroit, a lot of people like Detroit's defense this week, right? And for good measure, because Chicago averaged like the worst yards per play or whatever in NFL for however many years, maybe even NFL history. I don't remember what the stat was exactly. Sutton is probably one of the only guys I would look at in that Baltimore-Denver game personally. I don't mind him. Robert Woods, I like Woods. I actually like Woods more than Cooper Kupp. And here's an interesting stat or fact for you. I see a lot of times, like on Twitter, like somebody goes off and has a big game, right? And someone like Cooper Kupp, like week in, week out. So a perfect example would be like somebody saying, hey, Cooper Kupp, no cup, no cash, right? Well, do you realize that in the Millie Maker first place contest, million to first, Cooper Kupp, even with the monster game he had, wasn't in the winning lineup? So it doesn't necessarily always take the highest one scorer. It's how the rest of your lineup is constructed. So that kind of stance or that kind of talk or tweet is not necessarily true. Cooper Kupp was not in the Millie build. Not in the Millie build. And he was the top receiver last week. It's how the rest of you have how many other spots to fulfill in your lineup. Just because one guy goes off, that helps. That should help. But if you have somewhere else you goose egg, or a guy gets hurt, or you get a point from another player and you have him in your lineup, you still may not cash. You still may not win anything. You may not be in any green. So, something to think about. Tim Patrick, Cordell Patterson has been interesting. Again, I don't buy into it, right? Him getting these targets. He shows these glimpses. He did this in Minnesota, with the returning. He'd come in and do a couple run plays. They'd do some sweep arounds, whatever. He'd maybe break one. He'd get a touchdown here or there. I'm not buying that this continues to happen. I don't buy that this continues to be a thing where he's putting up that many points a week. Who knows? Maybe he does again. I'm not into it. I'm not buying it. I'm not going to be playing him. Juju Smith-Schuster. Another guy down here, Christian Kirk. Love Christian Kirk this week. We talked about it. DeAndre Hopkins going to be shadowed by Ramsey. Christian Kirk or Rondell Moore, especially stacking with a Kyler Murray, or just putting this on the other side of the ball with the Stafford stacks. Makes sense, guys. Makes sense. Devontae Smith, again, very low owned. Devontae Smith with a Jalen Hurts. Again, we don't want to be game log guys, but he is at 6, 7, 8 targets. He's getting a good share of those, right? So if you're going to go Hurts and you're going to play a stack and you're not going to go to Goddard or Ertz, I would be looking at Smith, and Smith would probably be my first go-to option. Kenny Galladay, not on, man. Daniel Jones burned us. He was in a great spot. He didn't show up, which typically happens. Now in Buffalo, you got a lot more on Beasley this week. If they're playing down with like a play for Allen like Beasley, I'm actually more interested in taking a shot at Emmanuel Sanders for $100 less. I think these two are very similar, but I think the ownership, especially when we're talking tournaments, Sanders is going to be much less owned. So I think they're both great plays, but I would go Sanders before Beasley personally if it was me. Michael Pittman, no thank you. I don't really like anybody on Indy right now. They're not producing. Corey Davis, I like this play this week. This is an interesting play. If the Jets do somehow keep up with the King Henry, I'm just going to say basically with King Henry this week, if they have any kind of, I know Zach Wilson's been terrible, but Corey Davis at 57, he's like 5,000 on DK. I mean, he got 10 targets last week, right? Zach Wilson's not having a great time throwing the ball to him properly, but 10 targets, he is kind of their go-to. He's playing, I'm not really into the narrative crap or the, get my former team back because I don't really believe in all that, but he is playing his former team, so if you are into the narrative stuff, there is that as well. Robbie Anderson is interesting as well because Diggs is going to be on DJ Moore, right? I still like Moore. I don't mind him. But Robbie Anderson is a little more interesting on that Carolina-Dallas game because Diggs has been a monster. He's been a beast. Like, he's been tearing it up for Dallas, right? Easily right now, I think Defensive Player of the Year or Defensive Rookie of the Year. My apologies. That dude has just been tearing it up. Now, Brandon Ayuk, again, I touched on this. Fester had mentioned something about stacking a Jimmy G. This is a good place to go at 5,700. The dude's got immense talent. I think he gets it done. I think he can easily find the end zone this week. Now, again, I do like Sermon. I do like getting trapped, if you will, in the 49er stuff, because it sounds like Eli Mitchell is not going to play this week. So you got Hasty's behind him. Maybe McKinnon. Is McKinnon still on the 49ers? Callaway finally got a catch in the end zone, right? He finally showed us maybe what he could do, but still, there's no targets there. Like 5 targets, not there. AJ Green, another Arizona Cardinal, interesting deal. Another place you could possibly go to in that Kyler Murray stack, or to run it back on the other side of the Stafford news. Again, Baltimore not really on it. Rieger would be another guy to look at in Philly with the Hurts. Hardman is interesting in KC as well if you're looking for that cheap option. He could possibly get there. You got Waddle and Parker. Waddle is cheap. Deshaun Jackson, I don't know that he might see a dime. He might get a big dime, break one, bust one, if you will. Not going to get a ton of targets. KJ Osborne is still interesting, right? The targets were not there last week. He had 2 targets, not what he normally seen. You're taking a stab, a punt play, but if there's a possibility it's there. This is the guy I was talking about, Westbrook Ikeen or whatever. So again, with Julio and AJ Brown out, you could possibly look there. Rondell Moore, again, this is another guy I talked about. Has that breakout ability. Curtis Samuel is in a good spot for Washington as well, especially if you like Tyler Haneke, right? If you like Tyler Haneke and you like that side of the offense and you're not going like Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel down here at 5,300 would make some sense. We talk Lazard, Detroit, Anthony Miller's Houston again, Cedric Wilson. I mean, again, taking kind of a stab, a punt. Chester Rogers, if you will. James Washington's a possibility with Claypool out this week. Don't forget about it. Van Jefferson is another guy. Terrence Marshall Jr. is a guy that you know, for his price at 5,000, could be heavily involved, could break one, could get in the end zone. So you got to kind of look sometimes, and you know, sometimes there's guys that are here that you just got to look at. So that would kind of wrap it up. Again, takeaways from like receivers on my end, and really where I'm going to be at is going to be Jefferson, Thielen, Odell Beckham, Lamb, Cup, Robert Woods, Christian Kirk, Rondell Moore, Devontae Adams, right? These are guys that I'm going to really be looking at or looking to target in my main builds. Let's go back over to running back. We kind of skipped a running back. So let's go back to running back. So obviously, guys, King Henry, they don't have really any other offensive weapons this week. Julio and A.J. Brown are out. Henry is a must start. Yeah, like this, the break says must start. But see, that's where you got to be careful because, yes, cash games, I would say probably 100% lock in. But again, in tournaments, there's so many people that are thinking on that same level, and he is very expensive. He is very expensive. I get it. He's going to be the majority of the offense, or he should be, right? And sometimes even then we get trapped. We get trapped into plays like this. So at 10.2, I mean, it's a hefty price tag. It's the best matchup one can get, right? I think cash 100%. I think GPPs, I think you got to not play him every single lineup because I think that's the mentality and the thinking of most people, right? And there are some other guys in great positions at running back that may not put up the exact number, but remember, you're matching up what the player does to their price, right? So it's how much value they're getting out of what their price tag is. I mean, he's by far. Dalvin Cook, sounds like he's going to play this week. I still think there's going to be a little more timeshare this week because of him kind of with that lagging injury. So Alexander Mattison, maybe taking a few of his snaps. He's still in a great spot. I still don't mind it. I'm not really going to Dalvin this week. Again, you've already heard my stance on the Minnesota Vikings. I'm heavy on Cousins, you know, with Jefferson and possibly Thielen. So, but Derrick Henry, again, I don't think there's much to say about this. He's going to be their offense. He's going to be heavily involved. He's probably going to get targets like he has been this year for the first time in his career. So Dalvin Cook, again, you can go there. He's going to be very low owned. So if you're seeing this game in a different game script, if you feel like Dalvin gets in a couple times, scores a couple touchdowns, you know, breaks one, has 160 yards rushing, whatever, then maybe I would play him at 9.5 and get off Cousins and Jefferson. Alvin Kamara is a guy that I really love. That's kind of really the pivot that I would pivot to from Derrick Henry. Guys are still going to be on. I'm still going to love him. The ownership's still going to be there. It's not going to be extremely high because of the price tag. But usually when people are building a GPP lineup, they're typically looking at the top running backs, and they're usually going to pick one of them, right? And then they're going to look for some more value in their other running back spot or in their running back spots if you're utilizing the flex as well. Okay? So, Kamara against the Giants in New Orleans. I think he has a big game. He's heavily involved in the offense. Najee Harris, not a bad play. Like, it's insane what this guy is. He's on the field, it seems like 100% of the snaps. He is getting, like, this is just absolutely mind-blowing. For a running back his size and kind of who he is, 19 targets last week. He caught 14. He had 102 receiving yards. Like, crazy, right? That's absolutely mind-blowing. Like, in DraftKings, this is huge from a running back. Now, he has been getting targets every week. I mean, but it jumped. It's been 3 to 5 to 19, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. It's insane. From a guy like the Steelers who like to just run the ball. Like last week, 19 receptions. The price tag's up there, but he's so utilized. He's heavily involved in the offense, kind of like Alvin Kamara is, right? So, interesting. Nick Chubb, I like Nick Chubb. I'm a big Nick Chubb fan, and they should be able to run the ball here, but are they going to split it with Hurt? I'm heavier on Odell Beckham, and I'm heavier on that pass game than I am on the run game to run it back on the other side of the ball here. CMC's out. DeAndre Swift, waiting on news here. I think he's expected to play. Yeah, expected to play. I really like Swift, man. This is another guy in the running back pool that I have. He's going to be in a lot of my lineups. Again, another guy who's heavily involved in the offense. I think we could continue to see that continue to creep up and increase a little bit more. There should be a decent play this week. Not worried about his growing. Right. Yep. Saucy. Exactly, man. Yep. I'm catching up with you guys. Sorry I'm missing some of the chats. Grab Madison. He paid off. Yep. Henry should be highly owned. Yeah, he's going to be highly owned. That's why I'm going back to Henry. That's what I'm saying. You got to get different in tournaments to take him down to win the big money, right? If you just want to like mim cash, yeah, you could have Derrick Henry in your lineup if he's 50% owned or 70% owned, but that's why he's more a cash play, right? More a cash play. David Montgomery's getting a lot of talk this week. He is in a great spot. Is it a trap? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, is David Montgomery a trap this week? He's in a great spot. Bears have not had a good offense to show so far this year. Going up against Detroit Lions. That's why the Detroit Lions defense is pretty popular as well, because we're trying to figure out if David Montgomery is a trap this week. There's a good possibility he will be, right? Going back to the Green Bay Pittsburgh game with Aaron Jones, this is another guy he's just a beast, man. So he is a guy that you will find sometimes in lineups that take tournaments down, where he's that type of running back that you could have actually with like an Aaron Rodgers. You know how you usually say when you stack an offense, like for a tournament, stacking a quarterback with a running back doesn't correlate? Aaron Jones is just a different beast, to where that's kind of thrown out the window for him, right? Now you can play him himself. I'm not saying you have to play him with Aaron Rodgers if you like playing Aaron Jones, but you could technically have like Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and it's going to get really pricey, like a Devontae Adams, right? Or a Tanyan, Jones, Rodgers, or some type of stack like that. So he is a player that you could possibly look to do something like that if you'd like. Chris Carson, again, they're trying to run this ball as well, even though they should be a very pass-heavy offense. So Carson's always somebody that's viable, that he's gonna, if it's close to the end zone, either Wilson's punching in or Carson's punching in, one of the two. Or unless they're gonna throw a little dump pass to, well, now Disley. Could have been Disley, Everett, or whoever. Antonio Gibson's another guy I just love. He should be playing today. He's a big part of my player pool. He's in a great spot against Atlanta. Again, I think he's expected to play. Yep, expected to play. Boom, right there. So, and again, another thing you guys got to remember is like when players have Q tags on them, a lot of people are afraid to play them, right? Because that Q tag, them possibly being injured, there's the risk of them possibly injuring it again in game. There's many possibilities. There's things that like guys just don't want to take that risk. They see that and they automatically, when they're hand building or they're building their lineups, they're like, ooh, no, I don't want to play him. No, he's got that tag. I don't care if he's expected to play. He's in a great matchup, great spot. I like him. My gut's telling me to play him. I'm playing him. So, if he goes out or re-injures or something and he doesn't come back in the game, then I'll have to live with that. However many lineups I have him in, I'll have to live with that. But I'm willing to take that risk because, again, you have to take risks and you have to get different to be able to beat the field. We don't do it by just playing all the same guys. If we need to play cash games and cash games only, if that's how we just want to play, right? Like, you know, I have a buddy that I talk to a lot about DFS, a good buddy of mine that I've really gotten to know. We DM each other every day. He's heavy into DFS too. And we kind of, when it gets close to lock, we share our lineups with each other, like to see who we're on. We talk about who we like. We each say which pitchers we like in baseball, which pitchers, football, etc. And you know, it's the common thing. Like, here's how you're at the end of the day, or the end of the main slate, like if we're talking main slate contest, this is how it should look. When you go and you look at your overall, like where you finished, you either want to be way over towards close to first and winning a lot of money, or a lot of times you're going to be way opposite, like very low scoring when we're talking tournaments, because that's what it takes. Your guys are either going to go off, and sometimes they're not going to be in great positions, but they're going to go off because it happens, and that's how you gain that leverage. That's how it goes from one end of the low end of the spectrum on the line of the contest all the way over, right? To ship it, to take it down. You have to get different. You have to get cute. You don't have to get cute everywhere. You don't have to get different everywhere, but you have to have those players like the Justin Jeffersons at under 5% owned in your lineup for tournaments to win. If you mim cash, like, that's great. You mim cash to, like, play for another week, but it almost shows that you really didn't take a big enough risk in tournaments, right? Because either you're going to be farther over, and if you're in mim cash, then you're kind of just building more cash lineups per week because you had a lot of that same heavy ownership throughout your whole build. And sometimes I have to reiterate that to my buddy that I DM, because he'll be like, oh man, I put this baseball tournament, it was terrible. I was almost all the way over to the left. Like, I scored like 43 points. Well, no, that means you did something right. It just didn't work out this time. You built a tournament lineup that was low owned. You took a stab at. You probably stacked a team or two that maybe was in a possibly good position, but nobody was talking about against a tough pitcher, etc., that you thought maybe was going to go off, right? I'll give you an example in baseball. I know we're in football, and I'm just kind of sidewinding talking about tournaments, but I played a twin stack the other year against, like, Syndergaard when Syndergaard was just going off. And the Twins ended up scoring like 11 runs against him. And I had all Twins stack under like 1% ownership. That was a big money day. Because most people would be playing Syndergaard against the Twins, right? Because he's in such a good spot, etc. I went against the grain. You have to sometimes do that. You have to take that stance. So just some more things to think about as you're building your lineup, especially GPP lineups. Ezekiel Elliott. I still feel Pollard is, a lot of people will say this, Pollard's the better back, you know, but he's still going to get the touches. It's still going to be there. He had an uptick last week. I see that to continue to either stay steady or bump up a little bit more if you're not on like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper, Schultz, etc. Barkley, man, Barkley's he just scares me, man. But he did have a good week last week. Against New Orleans, I don't think I'm a big fan of it, though. Madison is interesting with Cook. Again, I think they're going to be sharing some time. I don't really like paying that tag at 6,800 for the uncertainty of how much he would really get or how many plays he really gets to play. Clyde Edwards, Hilaire, not on. Jonathan Taylor, I'm not on. Miles Sanders, again, I don't know what's up with this dude, but you know, you got Gainwell kind of knocking on the back end, on the back door. You got Kareem Hunt, always interesting as well. He can always pop something in, relieve for Cup or Hub or Nick Chubb. Possibility to go there. Hubbard, again, we kind of touched on. He is interesting with CMC out. He should get the majority of the work. It's there. The production will be there. It's just if they get behind, they're not going to probably be dumping off passes like they would be to McCaffrey, right? That's not how that's going to work. It's going to be more throws to Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, etc. to try to get back in the game or get caught up. Melvin Gordon, no thanks. Chase Edmonds is another interesting play on the other side of that Rams stack. I wouldn't play him with Murray if you're going to stack on the Murray side, which is going to be very low owned, right? Patterson, again, we get him on both running back and receiver. Well, I already touched on him. Zach Moss found the end zone last weekend, not on him. Henderson, no. This is a guy that I'm going to take a stance on this week. I got burned week 1, guys. I got burned week 1 like some other people did. I went all in when Sermon was ruled out week 1. I went all in on Mostert, as a lot of the industry did, I think. Right? And Eli Mitchell ran the show. Well, Mostert's out. Eli Mitchell is doubtful to play. More than likely not playing, right? Sermon should get the majority of the workload. I get. You got Hasty in the back end and all that. I'm going to play this guy at 5,900. Goal line carries, I think he gets them. I think they're there. And I think he should have a decent week. And at 5,900, I'm willing to take a shot with him. So he's going to be heavy. He's going to be heavy in a lot of my lineups. Devontae Williams, no thanks. Sonny Mitchell's interesting against Arizona. I'm, again, more heavy on playing Stafford and like Woods with Higbee. Personally, Tyson Williams. Pollard again, if you think something weird there with Ezeke's going to go out. Connor found the end zone twice. Gainwell. Mike Davis. Here's another guy that's interesting, right? 5,400. Patterson's been stealing some of this. I do have Davis in some lineups. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to take a shot with him today. Again, J.D. McKissick, I kind of touched on the possibilities with Gibson. If you think that, he's a little more hurt than he is a guy that you could kind of go to or pivot off of and save money to go elsewhere and pay up elsewhere if you'd like. That's kind of where we're at there. Let's get into tight end. We've almost been going for 50 minutes. So again, Kelsey's an interesting play. I would play Kelsey, like if you did a Hurts build on a tournament, like a Hurts, let's say you did like a Hurts, Devontae Smith. I would be interested in running it back because Kelsey's he's got a very good floor, which is very cashy as we talk about cash. But he's also going to probably be guaranteed those 10, 12 targets, right? A week. And maybe even he could even have a couple more if it's just that week for him. So Kels is interesting there. He's also interesting in a stack with Mahomes. Again, we talked about Mahomes and how they're all going to be probably sub 10% owned because of their price tags being some of the highest, him, Hill, and Mahomes. But you can go there. Kittle, likely to play against Seattle. I don't think I'm going to pay $600-700 for that. Hawkinson against Chicago could be there. I'm heavier on Swift here, though, for Detroit. I'm not going there with Hawkinson. Andrews, again, I didn't really like anything about the Baltimore-Denver game. Goddard, we touched on, again, with Hurts. It's a great stack. Him, Smith, Hurts, or you could even go Hurts and Goddard just alone. Higbee, I love. He's a very cash viable play as well. Just thinking what Conklin did to Seattle. So it's a possibility. I think there's better spots to go at tight end with a lot more savings. Again, you got to remember, we're looking at price tag too. So Kittle has to do quite a bit more to pay that off at tight end than, say, like a Higbee or a Pitts or even a Logan Thomas if you're on a Heineke low-owned stack. Even Schultz, taking a shot with Schultz at 5,000. Evan Ingram, Austin Hooper against the Vikes, right? For some reason, you believe in Fields. Cole Kmet, having a big game. Zach Ertz as well, saving down from Goddard. So, that's kind of where the stance is there. Defense, again, guys, defense is always a crapshoot. It's always a crapshoot at defense. Defense. There's always a defense that shows up or puts up a decent amount of points. Again, when you're picking a defense, you're not picking a defense to you're not picking a defense you really honestly think is going to shut another team out, because I talk about this all the time. Shutting a defense out just typically doesn't happen, right? or shutting an offense out, like them not scoring any points, you're looking for that pick six. You're looking for that special teams touchdown. You're looking for it with some interceptions, with some fumble recoveries, with some sacks. That's what you're trying to look at. So that's why a lot of people love the Lions this week, right? Because they feel like, some people feel like the Bears are going to continue to do what they did last week, which isn't have very much offense at all. You know, Fields get murdered. Usually, yeah, it is usually a trap, Fester. Right, Swift has had the same injury tag all year, and he's been solid. Exactly. I'm trying to catch him on some of your guys' chats. I'm sorry, man. Just when I start going. So, picking him. Yeah, exactly. This breaks. It doesn't make it difficult, not on FanDuel as much, because price is soft in some areas, so you can usually still make things work. But again, you got to remember that a lot of people, like, when we're building a tournament lineup, we're trying to get creative in a few spots elsewhere. And like when we say Derrick Henry's in a great spot, everybody knows that Derrick Henry's in a great spot, and a lot of people are going to want to play him. So we, pivoting off that, trying to get different, trying to get cute off of that is what we like to do. I'm up in the air on Edwards, Hilaire, saucy, man. I don't know. I don't think I go there. I think I would rather take a stab on someone like Sermon than him. Chiefs defense is up. Hurts will run the ball out. Exactly, saucy, and that's what I touched on earlier when I talked about Hurts. Like, you're playing him for his more or less his run ability. And he's a quarterback, right? So he can throw the ball to Devontae Smith and whoever else. But you're playing him for his legs, for his run ability. Jeremy, what up, bro? Good to see you, man. Steve Thompson, welcome, Saucy. I didn't really say what's up to a lot of you guys. This is the breaks. I apologize. I appreciate you guys all hanging out tonight. What do you think about Conklin? Conklin's interesting. I did build like one lineup. One of my cousin's lineups has him in there. I just, it's... Until I see some consistency, it's great for tournaments, again, because it's the unknown, right? And hardly anybody's going to play him. But until we can see some kind of consistency, like where he's getting targets or where he's going to be targeted weekly, like, on an average like last week, it's hard. It's hard because we don't know how big of a part of the offense he's really going to be. Knox at tight end, Steve, is interesting. I don't mind Knox. I kind of missed over him. But he is interesting. I like Emmanuel Sanders the most out of all of the Buffalo. I mean, obviously, Diggs is going to be more popular, but for the price savings, I like to go to Emmanuel Sanders, actually over Beasley. I touched on that when we talked about the receivers. And again, guys, I'm a Viking fan, but I rarely play Vikings in daily fantasy. I don't think I've ever played Kirk Cousins in the last so many years. Like, I'm playing him this year, like, this season, this week, this is how good I feel about it. My gut's telling me to play him this week. And this is probably the week he's going to bust, right? That's typically how it works. But again, that's how you build tournament lineups. Like, taking shots at guys that are very low owned in good spots that could possibly go off and should go off. But a lot of people aren't playing because they have that gut feeling that he's not going to go off. So we got to play the other way. It's healthy and real cheap, and they have a bunch of pass catchers out there. Yeah, I kind of said Ingram. You could go to Ingram. I have Melvin Gordon at flex, nervous. Yeah, it is a little nerve-wracking, especially against Baltimore, but what do you think about Conklin? Buffalo scoring a lot this week, in my opinion. Yeah, but again, like, you have to also remember you got to remember the other side of who they're playing, and I don't want to talk you off of Allen or Buffalo or anything, but like, how many points are they really going to score? Like, are they going to just get up and like Houston's really not going to score at all, and so then they're going to just be kind of running the ball and kind of killing clock, like in the second half of the game, late in the third, or so. How many points, can one like a Josh Allen and Diggs and whoever put up? Again, you want to look at the matchups. That's why the more popular plays are shootout plays, and that's why, again, I think it's interesting to go to somebody like a Kyler Murray in a Rams-Arizona shootout because it should be a shootout, and Arizona should be playing from behind. I know they're going up against a very tough defense, right? Very tough defense. But Kyler, people always say it, Kyler is like a video game, right? He's like that video game quarterback. Like, he makes things happen. He scrambles, he gets out, he makes big plays happen. So it's going to be interesting. Me, Buffalo does not have a stack upside because of blowout. That's what I'm saying, Jeremy. That's exactly what I was just touching on. So how many points? Like, you got to start asking yourself these questions. How many points? Take a team like Buffalo. Like, how many points are they going to score? How many points are they going to have to score? Maybe that's a better way to ask yourself that when you're looking at a build and you're looking at a lineup. How many points do they have to score? Because if Houston never comes back, like, they continue to get the ball and they never come back and they don't make it close, what's the point? Buffalo, this isn't like college football where they're trying to score as many points as they have to once they get a super comfortable lead, right? They're going to take the easy way. They're going to run the ball. They're going to kill clock, protect the ball. They're going to do whatever they can. Yeah, Steve, and hopefully it is, but I don't know that he needs to do that this week. I don't think he does. I think Fields will get sacked a few times because he holds the ball so long, and I don't think he for enough. But yeah, exactly. I agree, and they're going to be popular. So I'm going to let's work on continuing this build here. I do like the Vikings defense too, even in a shootout. I think Minnesota, maybe possibly, they're going to get a couple sacks. They might get a pick. They might even get a pick 6 in this game, even though it might still be close. So again, I like Gibson. I do like Swift. You know, I like to pair up a lot of times if I can the defense with the running back. It's always a good play. It's always a smart play, smart thing to do, right? So we got a run back. I like Higbee, Pitts. Knox is interesting. Conklin we could do. I like Schultz this week. I really like Schultz. Right? Goddard's good. Pitts is interesting. Washington. You could do a little bit of a core. I have a hard time with Matt Ryan this year. He hasn't shown me anything. He hasn't shown me anything right now. Go like this. That leaves us 7,100. Really like Woods. Go like Woods here. That would leave us 8,000. Up, Diggs, Pocket, Hopkins, up. Let me go here. Actually, 400. That leaves us 86. So Cup, Else, Hill, Harris, Adams. This was DK. I'd be all over Adams. Actually, let's do this. Let's try to build. That's my main guy, but let's try to build a Kyler one, right? So, should we do Rondell Moore or should we do Christian Kirk? Kirk is 6,000. Moore is 53,000. Other input. Also tight end. But do we like, for the pairing at receiver, do we like Rondell Moore at 53 or do we like Kirk? 6,000. We just do this. We can go Woods. Right? You want to do Kels at tight end. Let's see. So that leaves us at 68 too. And I like Sermon. Deep 5,900. We said we like Swift. Do Swift. Right, with the Lions. So that leaves us 68.5. 68.5. Let's see. McLaren's interesting, like we talked about. Beckham we could do. Evans. Vontae Smith. Let's do Ayuk. And flex. I mean, this Debo McLaren or Ayuk. So you want to do this. I got Sermon in there though. Got Sermon already in Niner guy. Remember, again, your flex, you guys, you want to flex, you want to have late game guys, so you can swap, right? If you're checking the contest and you're looking at who's ahead of you, you're closing in on shipping a GPP, you want the ability to change this player if you have to. Late swap. So you always put, if you can, it's like a main slate, you always put a late game player. Pop off if you. So yeah, what about like something like this? So Kyler, again, gonna be very low owned. Should be in a shootout against the Rams. I love Stafford. Don't get me wrong. Again, I have plenty of Stafford, but this just makes things a little more interesting. Running it back, we got Woods, Detroit with Swift, Sermon, Beckham, Terry McLaurin, which I think he's going to own it, and Travis Kelce at tight end, paying all the way up at tight end, which again is going to be very low owned. So we have super low ownership on Murray, super low ownership on Kelce, for sure, right? Sermon will be interesting. I don't know how many people go back to the. Yeah, man, that's what I'm here for, brother. I talked about that like last week or the week before too, but you'd be surprised at how well having that ability to late swap before the late games start. Like if you're in a contest and you're playing somebody, right? And you know, you're like, let's say they got the exact salary and it's like a higher owned player and the guy above you and you feel he's got the same, you could actually try to find someone to pivot off of and save a couple $100 or like leave a couple $100 on the table even that's also in a great spot that's probably not even barely talked about to try to get ahead of him, right? Because ultimately you're trying to take that down because first place to second place is a big difference in most tournaments and pay scales, right? Like in the milli, it's like 1 million a first. It's like 250,000 a second. Like there's a $750,000 pay difference between first and second place. So getting a little creative. Submit that. That's kind of what that lineup looks like, right? Oh, you're good, Terry. Don't worry about it, brother. Good, man. Just take it all in, man. Take it all in. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So again, kind of my take on the whole thing is I think Mahomes comes out this week, and I think he really makes a statement. And I think he makes a statement with his arm. Like, starting the way they started, he's wanting to crush this week. And that's why I think, like, he is a good cash and a good GPP play, because I think he goes out and I think he just shows us again who Patrick Mahomes really is. And that is using his arm. So I'm not a huge fan of him personally. I'm heavier on Patty Mahomes on that stance. You know, a guy. So let's just look here. So he's what price? Yeah, I mean at 6,700, that's tough. Like at that price tag, I mean, there's the possibilities of playing Hubbard. I'd even pay down again, like I said, like Sermon. What did we have here? What did we have right here? Oh, we had Woods there. Why did that switch? So weird. Why did that? I didn't click to pull him out, did I? Weird. So again, I think Mahomes goes again to show off his arm and show us what he. What up, Rob? How you doing, brother, man? Good morning. Good to see you, man. We're just talking some football. We're about an hour, a little hour, over an hour in. Probably almost about done, to be honest with you. I typically do these about an hour. But let me just kind of go. Let me look game by game and see if I'm missing anything I didn't think about. I mean, dude, the Bills line, going back to Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills in that Houston game, it's 17.5 points. They're favored by 17.5 points. That's a very, very huge spread. So they're saying there's a 47 point total. I don't think it's there, man. You're good, Faster, man. I appreciate you popping in. Yeah, you too, Rob. You too, buddy. My favorite. Okay, so my favorite 5 plays, Jeremy. Favorite 5 plays. Let me look. I got my list here. So 1 is going to be Cousins in that shootout with Cleveland. 2 is going to be Jefferson, Justin Jefferson paired with Cousins. Okay. 3 is going to be Odell Beckham Jr. running it back on the Minnesota stack. So that's 3. 4 is going to be Sermon, 49ers, with Eli pretty much doubtful, even though this might be a trap again. And I think 5 is going to be Swift, DeAndre Swift. Those would be like my top 5. Now again, guys, I have at value this week. You know, if you're playing like Hurts, Devontae Smith for Philly, he's kind of his main target besides Goddard. Dalton Schultz at tight end for Dallas. Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco. If you're not playing the likes of Debo or Sermon. And I really like Emmanuel Sanders just because of the price tag, because I think he might get a touchdown. And again, we don't think that game's going to continue to shoot out, but you don't need him to get like 3 touchdowns for you at his price tag. So you just need 1. Yeah. Yep. I love the Minnesota stack. Mitchell is out, right. So again, I'm going to message you. Perfect, man. Sounds awesome, dude. You're doing well. I think they use William. I don't know. I think his production it will continue to uptick. To be honest with you, I'm a big fan of Jamal Williams as well. But have a great Sunday. I love watching Red Zone with my 2 sons. Yeah, man, that's always fun. It's always a good time. You guys got any other questions for me? Otherwise, we're gonna wind this down, and I'm gonna continue to go through and look over the rest of my stuff and just make sure. Again, guys, one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give you personally, as like more of an average player that's been playing for 8 years daily, is go with your gut. Follow your gut like you do with just about anything in life, or you should. Like if your gut's telling you something, and don't overanalyze. Like we could sit here, do you guys realize, like I could go through and I could give you guys a bunch of crazy numbers and we could look at statistics and we could just dive into all that stuff. But I think that sometimes we overthink things, right? When you start diving into those numbers, when you start overanalyzing, or I'm not saying it's overanalyzing, but I think that's more for guys that are trying to build a very large player pool because they're optimizing and they're putting in their players that they like. However many, they're minimizing their player pool to a smaller large player pool to then have their system optimize 150 lineups for them to put in 150 MME contests, right? Remember that anybody can do anything, right? Like it's not as high variance as baseball. It's more predictable. But again, follow your gut. Go with your gut. Like again, don't overthink things. Sometimes we overthink things. It's the same thing like in playoff football. There's a guy I used to watch every once in a while. He's not even around anymore in DFS, but he played. He was a solid player, played for a long time. We'd always talk about like the playoff slates, right? The players in the playoff slates and how your pool is so minimal because there's only so many games. It's not like regular season. And you constantly got these guys talking about these players that they're on, and they're not good players. Like they're not good players at all. Like, and it's like, we're overthinking this. Play good players, play guys with the ability to make big plays. Don't overanalyze. Don't dive down too low to someone who isn't probably even going to have the opportunity. Like, it just go with your gut. Play with your gut. Oh, one other thing, guys, I did want to show you guys. I don't know if you guys it's called Prize Picks, right? You guys check this out, man. You can basically it's doing the over under on like yards passed, rushing yards, receiving yards, etc. And they have it for all sports, but it's called Prize Picks. I actually have a link down below in the description if you go down to where it says like join Prize Picks or whatever. I do have a promo code. If you do deposit, they will match up to $200. $200 by putting in that code, whatever you deposit. So if you put 25 in, they'll give you 25. I do have a promo code in there. It does give us the added incentive there, but you can really honestly just like you can do rushing, passing, whatever. So, you could go. You're going to go for this. Like, this might be a decent one, right? Because I would say that Tannehill is probably on the under unless he gets over. I think Cousins passes for over. I could play, say, $5. And then you can either do, you just have to get one right to win 10. Or you could do that and you could win, like, basically For $5, you could win 15 if you get both of them right, right? I mean, you could go either way. I'll just do that. But, and then you just place bet, place entry. So it's Prize Picks. You can download it on your phone. It's always fun. It's easy. It's very simple. You're just simply picking the over or the under. They have rushing, receiving. They have baseball. They'll have NBA when the NBA season, which is starting around the corner. So, guys, once football does end, I'll probably continue to do this. Like on Sundays, we'll do like an NBA show or something, like where I kind of go through and, you know, whatever, even though NBA is daily, but it kind of give you an idea of where we're at. And then Terry, I believe, he had brought up about doing like a Monday recap. So there's a good chance that maybe I'll start doing Monday night, like after work. We'll be back here, and I'll kind of show you guys where I landed, where things ended, where things were, and kind of where we were and where we weren't, right? It's always good to go back, kind of like a lineup review, and kind of see where we're at, where we stand, where things landed. And it helps for moving forward. I'm not sure, bro. I can't do any. I see the problem in Minnesota is I can't do any game betting. I can play DFS. I can't do any parlay bets or any game betting. Minnesota. I'm not sure. Yeah, but what I'm saying, Jeremy, is I think that I think Swift continues to kind of move up that. I think we see more 65-35 or 70-30. And I think that's going to continue to move as the weeks go, unless Swift does something that puts him down, trend down. What Tennessee receiver would you use? They're all cheap. So if I'm using a receiver, I'm probably using that Westbrook Ainke dude or whatever. If I'm going to use one, I don't think I am, but if I was, that's who I would use. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up here. It looks like most people already left. So, guys, check out Prize Picks, and I will see you guys. Good luck to all you gamers. Good luck to everybody playing out there in either DFS or season-long fantasy football. I wish you all the best. I love you all. Stay positive, stay true, and do you. Peace.